Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are located. Thank you for joining us today here on the NCIHC LLD Conversations work group podcast called LLD Conversations. In this podcast, we like to be able to talk with subject matter experts, leaders in our industry that represent languages of limited diffusion or are trainers themselves or have significant experience working with or interpreting in languages of lesser diffusion. And today we have a very special guest joining us all the way from Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Maria here in just a moment. And before we get started, I just want to also remind everyone to make sure that you share this podcast with others. We'll be posted on LinkedIn, on all social media platforms, as well as our NCIHC website, where you can see all of our episodes right there. So without further ado, Maria and Gaspar, thank you so much for joining us today, all the way from South Carolina.
Thank you, David, for the opportunity. It is a pleasure to be here, to see you again. I met you in Portland at the ATA conference, which is a pleasure. And so it is nice to see you again.
It's wonderful to see you too. And yeah, it was a great conference at the ATA there in Portland. We got to sit with each other at the Spanish division dinner. I got to learn a little bit about Maria, and I just thought, wow, this is someone who I'm excited to share with our NCIHC community, to share a little bit about her story, her background, and I think you all are really going to walk away with some good takeaways. So we will go ahead and jump right in. Maria, before we get started, though, I want to also just have everyone that may not already know you get to know you a little bit better on the personal level. So just a few questions for you first. Is tell us your favorite food, that food that you just like, you have to have it every week.
Coming from Guatemala, we eat a lot of hot food, caldo de res, caldo de pollo, which is a form of beef soup, chicken soup, in our traditional way with vegetables. And it could be 100 degrees hot. Rather have that than anything. It's healthy. It's really good. So any of the caldos or soups in our town that I can eat every day.
I love it. That sounds tasty. All right. The next question is: so you currently you speak and interpret in 2 languages, in Spanish and in Chuj. What would be another language if you could learn another language? What would you want to learn?
I always found it interesting the way it sounds, and would love, if I had the chance and the time to learn, I would love to learn Italian.
Wonderful. And one last question. So if you could snap your fingers right now and be transported to another place in the world that you've never been to before, where would you want to go?
One place I wish maybe one day, I want to go visit the Great Walls of China. Just the way, I love the outdoors. I love the views. So I think that would be a perfect place for a whole day walk.
I've never been there as well, and that's definitely on my bucket list. So yes, I would agree with you. It would be an awesome, incredible place to visit, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then, so growing up, Maria, you grew up in San Sebastián Coatán, Guatemala, and you, as a child, you spoke Chuj and Spanish, or did you tell us a little bit about your upbringing as far as language goes, and then how you came into the world of interpretation and language access?
Yes, very interesting. I was born in San Sebastián Coatán, a Chuj community. So I was born there, raised there, up until 8 years of age by my paternal grandparents, as my parents had left for the US. So I was 2 years old when they left. So I grew up speaking Chuj only until turning 8. My parents decided to send me to school to the nearest city, Huehuetenango. So during this whole time, I spoke only Chuj. So this was a new world to me. If any, whenever you get a chance, you can go through my LinkedIn and check me out a little bit. But I didn't speak any other languages than Chuj when I moved to the city to live with a strange family. Although they were my relatives of mine, but I did not know them. So I had to go stay and live there, go to school, didn't speak Spanish. So this was for me the hardest time during this transition, because I was taken out of my hometown where I was happy. I had a happy childhood, as far as I can remember, looking over the sheep herd of my grandparents and with my aunts. So we would spend it in the mountains most of the time. So moving to a city where you don't understand the language, I grew up wearing my traditional clothing. So when I moved to the city and not knowing the language, started school, the other children did not understand and I wouldn't understand what they're saying. So an 8-year-old in a new city to a new language, it was hard. So I experienced what is now I know as bullying. Children making fun of me for wearing different clothes, speaking differently. So those were really hard times, especially the first year. I remember some very embarrassing moments because of that are still in my mind. But as time went by, I eventually learned. So I adjusted little by little. And then years later, in 1997 is when I immigrated to the United States. So that's when I started learning English once I got here. Going through the whole transition again. It was easier this time, the second time, but the first time was the hardest time, the hardest part for me. So at the time, I had no idea I was going to be an interpreter one day, and also because of facing this discrimination, this bullying from people, your own people. There's a word they use in Guatemala, indito. That's what they would call the indigenous people. That is a very diminishing word in all kinds of ways. So that hurts, hurtful, and that's what they used to call me. So for a long time, when I moved to the city and to the US throughout the years, I did feel ashamed for a long time of my roots, of who I was, because of what I experienced in going through these transitions. But the years passed, and I realized that I wanted to learn. I wanted to be able to communicate. I started a job at 15 years of age, and I couldn't understand the language. So I said, I want to learn. I want to be able to communicate. So I would work in the mornings, go to school in the evenings, adult school at this time, because I had no idea how important education was. So, but I did start learning English. So, and then years later, I came across someone who connected me to interpreting. I started off at my local hospital. Just someone from church said, would you be interested? We have some patients at our clinics that speak Chuj, and I know that you speak this language. Would you be able to, and would you be willing to help us out? At the time, I knew nothing about interpreting. I was just still learning English myself, and I said I can try to help them. So this is how I started off, just like every 2 weeks, every month, or just every now and then, I would say help out with assignments at the OB clinic, pediatric clinic, and slowly got into interpreting, and I found that it was something that I liked, and being able to help these communities or these people was somehow fulfilling, because I knew exactly what they were going through. I lived it myself. So, and then I thought to myself, this is something I would like to do, and I have the abilities and the capability of doing this. So why not go further? So I started taking trainings in different ways, webinars. I was not familiar with in-person conferences at the time, so I did a lot of webinars online, and later started going to in-person conferences, which I gotta say, those are my favorite way of connecting and learning. They're awesome. So that is how I got into interpreting, and found that was something I like. So I pursued as a career. And as of 2023, January, that is when I fully started focusing on interpreting. I worked at the production company for 15, 17 years. So throughout this whole time, as I was training to become an interpreter, I was working full time, and I started taking some on the side jobs elsewhere other than the hospital. And at the hospital, it's the only place until the day where I do Spanish interpreting, and the only place where I am a staff interpreter. The rest of my time, I'm freelance and cover Chuj only, because there is a high demand with the years. And a Chuj has two variations. So, and we don't have many interpreters in this language. So I found myself having to learn. I'm originally from San Sebastián Coatán, so that is a variation, Chuj San Sebastián. And there's also San Mateo Chuj. So as I was getting connected with places and language agencies, there was a demand for both. And I was able to understand some of the other Chuj, but I forced myself to learn it. So I just this year I got certified with the immigration courts to do Chuj San Mateo as well. So I now cover both anywhere it's needed, because there's a high demand, not many interpreters. So I think I want to continue learning and just keep helping these communities, because I've lived it firsthand. So being able to help is, for me, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, your story is the word that comes to mind when I listen to your story, and the little bit that I've read about you is just a story of resilience and perseverance as well. How do you look when you look back, like you said, there were moments where you felt shame even for your cultural roots? What was the moment for you that you can maybe think of where you were able to maybe turn that around, and instead of being shameful, you're proud, and you're going to use this story now that's given you strength? You've built real muscle and strength through those challenging times you had to go through. How did you turn that and be able to use that story for good?
Once I learned that I come from a Christian family, believer. So once I've learned that I was given this gift for languages for something, for a reason, for a purpose. So once I learned that instead of hiding it, or instead of being ashamed of it, it was I had to use it and show it, and let people know this, and that I wish I could instill in others who are facing the same situation, that don't be ashamed of it. This is you. This is what makes you, and use it to the best of your abilities, because not everyone can speak 2 or 3 languages. Being able to understand just a little bit of a second language, it's already marvelous. But learning another language, it's just, it's priceless. So just use it as a way of helping, and don't be ashamed of who you are.
Such a valuable message. And Maria, you mentioned about how dedicated you were to the training aspect. You're working full time at another job outside of language access, and you're also still you were still going through a lot of training. Talk to us a little bit about the value of training for individuals who are looking to get into our profession. How did that training impact you? What training paths did you take? What kind of trainings did you take? Was it all online? What was it, books? I used to listen to cassette tapes, but like what was your path, and how would you talk to others about the value of training?
I would use anything that I can get my hands on. Nowadays there's technology is very helpful in ways. You can go online and find a lot of resources. There's not many for Chuj, unfortunately, but some places are working on trainings that hopefully will have available for other interpreters that would like to take the trainings and just further their education, their knowledge. And to me, continuing education is very important because of the changing in everything now. So that's a way of keeping up with the ongoing changes. And webinars, I go online wherever available, and I would find books for, like, if I had to do an assignment or try to, for instance, when I was going through the process of having to get certification for the Chuj San Mateo, I would go on YouTube and just listen. There's not many resources, like I said, but they have the Bible in Chuj. It's a lot of the Bible, so I would just listen and practice. And so anything online, in person, that you can get your hands on, I said use it and just learn as much as you can.
And you're very dedicated and devoted to our industry, as well as the preservation of Mayan languages. I know you've been a part of the Mayan Language Preservation Project. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about what that project was and what role did you play in it?
Yes, that is very dear to my heart. I'm one of the indigenous language moderators, and I'm part of the board of advisors. And my role is to add, whenever I have the time, I volunteer in adding terms for Chuj specifically. We now have the audio part, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing, because these languages are mainly spoken, so there is not like a lot of written terms. So you might not find the written term in Chuj on the page, but you will find it in Spanish and English, and then the audio.
Okay.
So you can listen to it and hear how the word is said, try to practice. And the goal is to try to get one per language, one of the indigenous languages, and it's very hard to come across, but that is what we're doing. So in hopes in preserving the language, because Chuj is one of the languages that are facing extinction, I would say, and disappearing. So this is a great way of preserving it and passing it down to our generations, and for whoever who's interested in learning.
And where can an individual find those resources, whether the audio or digital? Where can they find them?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, and where could someone find those audio recordings? Or
Yes, so go to the Mayan Preservation Project. It's connected to Masterword. So you go to the preservation page, and there's a list of the different categories, and you just click on there. Let's say you want to learn some basic phrases, so you click on there, and that will show you the different languages. So you click on each language, and you'll find them all on that page.
okay, excellent. So they go to the Masterword website and then be able to find it through there.
Yes, the Mayan Preservation
Okay.
Project.
And when interpreting in Chuj, what are some of the unique challenges that you have encountered that maybe you don't encounter as much when you're interpreting in Spanish?
The biggest challenge, I think, for me is a lot of these new words have no interpretation, and Chuj is one of those languages. Like I said, it's like slowly disappearing. So throughout the years, have been replaced with some Spanish words, and when coming across some of these new words, I'll have to pause and ask, would you explain? Or mainly what happens in these languages are, since there's no literal translation, there are mostly translated as definitions. So it's kind of in a way explaining instead of saying the translation. So that is the challenge. So you kind of have to learn. I found it for me easier to first learn a Spanish term, and then once I know what that word means, then I know what the definition is, and it makes it easier for me to transfer it into Chuj.
Okay. And how have you seen technology be able to help and move the preservation of the language forward? How do you work with technology as far as in the Chuj language today?
Well, it's the technology is the only way of preserving it and passing the word, like expanding it to other areas, whoever comes across it. So I think technology plays a big part in preserving it and keeping it there and passing it to all these generations or whoever. So it's a key important part of what we do. It's much needed.
Yeah. We're getting close to time, Maria. I just have two more quick questions for you before we wrap up. Looking ahead, let's say 5 to 10 years down the road, what would be your aspiration for the Chuj language? Where would you want to see it arrive to?
Certification. It's one big thing that I would love to see, especially like in the legal systems, in the academic systems. Right now, it's very limited. For the immigration courts, they do have a way of certifying us with one of the Institute of Interpretation. So we get certified for the indigenous languages that way. And recently, CCHI for the medical, which is a great achievement. I got certified at the beginning of the year, and something I've been waiting for forever. And it's to me anyway, it's not the same as saying I'm qualified.
Right.
But when you say I'm certified and you have something to prove for it, that just makes a difference. So my hope and that we get a certification system for all the other fields for these languages.
Yeah, no, that's a great goal and vision. And looking out at the community, we have a lot of individuals that might be listening to this that are thinking about getting into interpreting, that might represent Mayan languages or indigenous languages. What would be your message for them today?
I would say get connected with resources that you're able to find, colleagues, and reach out and learn as much with the technology. Like I say, for the indigenous, there's unfortunately not many, for Chuj especially, not many resources, but learn. Conferences are a great way of learning and connecting, and there's the Academia de las Lenguas Mayas in Guatemala. That is a place to connect with. They have a couple of books and some resources. So just learn and as much as you can about and do researches and learn about them and what's the best way to go.
Yes, get connected. That is so key. Like you said, conferences are a great way to do that. I know conferences sometimes are hard, so being able to connect on LinkedIn, there's lots of great resources there as well. What's the best place for people to find you, Maria? Would that be on LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn, yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not very active on social media other than sometimes on Instagram, but LinkedIn, you can find me there. You can get connected with me any way I can help. I'll be happy to help.
Maria, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and sharing some of your experiences as a Spanish and Chuj interpreter. We're just grateful to be able to learn from you, and just excited to see your involvement and the impact you're making is huge. So adelante, keep going. We're cheering you on, and we're just happy to have someone as passionate as you in our industry. So
thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. It is great. I've loved to I've come to love the profession. It's everything. It makes me happy. I love what I do, so it's great. It has led me to meet wonderful people in the field, such as yourself. So it is a wonderful place to work, field to work. And thank you for the opportunity again.
it truly is. No, thank you, Maria. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will, I'm sure, be able to connect soon at another event.
Yes, I hope so.
All right. Thank you for listening in.
Yes, and I will say goodbye in Chuj.
Yes, please tell us.
Or thank you. Yuhu al Dios.
Yuhu al Dios.
That means thank you.
Excellent. And then before we started our conversation, I learned. Hopefully, I'm saying it right. I learned how are you in Chuj as well, which is Bacha Kohol.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You got it. Yes, that's really cool. That's really nice. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining. Well, until next time.